Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's discussion. So today I am going to talk about how you can support a child victim of childhood sexual abuse. And like what you can do if a child tells you that they have been sexually abused. The most important and first thing that you should do if a child discloses any type of abuse to you is, report it immediately. And normally you would report it to, the police or like Child Protective Services in the county in which the abuse is happening. And they are going to ask you questions like, what's the child's name? What's the child's age? Their race, their sex. They'll ask like the relationship to you and the child. They'll ask like what's the relationship of the abuser and the child. They will ask for the abuser's name, address, things like that. And I do know that sometimes if you don't want to get involved with it, that they do have confidential like tip lines and stuff that you can call in, and I'm pretty sure that they will be investigated. Or again, you can call the National Sex Assault Hotline and report it there as well. And like I said before, on rain.org, they do have like a confidential online chat room that you can go into. And I know sometimes it is a long wait to get in because I've been on it before. And there's a lot of people that, they need to talk to somebody. So sometimes it is a long wait for that, or again, you can call in too. So the next thing that you're going to want to do in helping to support a child is believe them. The most important thing that you can do for a child is to believe them. There is not much evidence stating or supporting that when a child comes forward with sexual abuse that they're lying or that they made it up. Out of all the cases reported a year, only 1% of those cases are false. What is more common, though, is a child being abused and them actually denying that they're being abused when there's actually clear proof that they're being abused. The next thing you can do is reassure the child that what has happened is not their fault, that what has happened to them relies solely on the person who abused them. A child's greatest fear is feeling that they are at fault for the abuse. And that's because, abusers make children feel that way. Abusers play mind games with children and make them, tell them, you're the reason why this abuse is happening. Or, they even convince children to think that they're actually like partners in the abuse. And no, it is never a child's fault for any reason if they are being, sexually abused. The next thing you're going to want to do is you are going to want to remain calm. Even though you'll have, just so many emotions and feelings running through your mind and your body, remaining calm is going to reassure the child that them telling you was the best thing for them to do. Because if you show them support and you show that child that you believe what they're saying, they're going to continue to talk. But if you give them like a disgusted look, or you make a statement like, oh, no way that's happening, or something like that, that child is going to clam up and then they're not going to talk about it again. And it's going to be even harder for somebody, child services or like a child advocate or somebody who comes in and helps children express what they're trying to say, because a lot of children are confused and they don't know the words to use when they're expressing child abuse. They're just going to keep that all in, and then, potentially the abuse will continue. Oh, and believing a child too is the first step in their healing process. The more that they feel that people believe them about what is happening, the more that they're going to be able to heal from the abuse. Next, you are not going to want to make promises to the child that you cannot keep. So don't, for example, don't tell the child, well, you're never going to see the abuser again. I can promise you that. Because you're not sure if that's going to happen. Especially when it's like parents who are abusing children, and say the parent who is abusing the child has full custody. Like, until there's like a full investigation and everything like that, they're still possibly going to have to go back to that parent. So therefore, don't make promises that you cannot keep, because the child is going to be looking to you for support. And if you are telling them something or promising them something, and then, it doesn't happen, I mean, they're going to think that, you're lying to them, just as the abuser has been lying to them. Do not interrogate the child. Like, don't sit there and continue to ask question after question after question after question. Because the more that a child has to sit there and talk about it and have all of it run through their mind, the more traumatic it is going to be for them. So if a child discloses to you that they are being sexually abused, and they give you, details and who it is, or you can suspect who it is, don't sit there and continue to ask them questions about it. Because it's often, in the child's best interest to wait until somebody from the children's division, comes in and talks to them or conducts an interview with them. And when you are talking to the child about it, don't lead the conversation. Allow the child to lead the conversation. Because when you're leading the conversation, it's making them feel like, well, I have to say this or I have to say that. But if they're leading the, conversation, then they're going to come out and say whatever they're going to say. Things you can say to a child who has disclosed abuse to you are, I'm glad you told me. Thank you. Or, you're very brave. You did the right thing. Or, I am sorry this happened to you and I wasn't there to stop it. It wasn't your fault. Making sure that you express so much to the child that what has happened to them isn't their fault is going to help them feel a little less guilty for, whether it be for the abuse happening or for them telling on their abuser, things like that. I'm proud of you for telling me. You can say, I need to make a report to people who know how to make the abuse stop. And, there's people who can help us. There's people who can help you. And, so just, again, reassuring them that, them telling you is, the best thing that they could have done. Helpful actions to support a child who has been sexually abused. Do allow the child to lead the discussion. Do answer questions if the child asks you a question to the best of your ability, because children are going to have questions and you might not have all the answers. But even if you can just answer a couple of them, that's going to be helpful to the child. Do help the child maintain a normal routine. Routines help children feel safe and they help keep down anxiety. Because when a child's routine is disrupted with, a bunch of different things, they'll start to get really, really, antsy, and their anxiety will start to kick up. But keeping them in that normal routine, going to school or doing sports, things like that. Don't just, because they've disclosed sexual abuse, don't just up and stop their life. Keep their life going and moving forward. Do control your emotions around the child. Your, emotions, if you're crying all the time in front of the child and saying things like, I can't believe that happened to you, it's my fault, I'm sorry, and, you're going to start to make that child feel guilty. And they're going to feel guilty for making you upset. And we don't want the children to, feel any more guilty than probably what they already do. So if you can help, just suppress your emotions, save your crying for bedtime. Find some time within yourself, your own time, where you can just get out of the house for a half hour and drive down the road and, just cry, scream, punch the steering wheel, like do whatever you have to do, but try to keep those emotions under control when you are around the child. Do allow the criminal justice system to do their work. So if they, want to do an examination on your child, they want to interrogate well, I wouldn't say interrogate, but, they want to do like an interview with the child. Everything that anybody, in the criminal justice system asks of you, do it. Because they are there to help your child. They are there to make sure that your child gets the justice that they deserve. So even if it's just the tiniest little things, like calling you at 6 p.m. at night and saying, hey, can you bring so-and-so in? There's new stuff that we need to go over. You drop what you're doing and you get up there and you do it. Do encourage the child to tell their story in their own words. If, okay, so a family member comes over and they're like, oh, well, did this happen? And, oh, yeah, that happened too. Don't allow somebody to feed words or ideas into your child's head. Anything that comes out of your child's mouth, make sure it is their story. Don't let anybody, even yourself, don't plant things into your child's mind. Let them use their own words. These are some do's for speaking with children who have been sexually abused. Make sure you tell them you believe them, reassure them, tell them you don't blame them, tell them you will do all you can to keep them safe. Let them know that you still love them. Make sure that you are expressing that in words, and you're also expressing that, giving them hugs and I love you, just scooping them up and just making them feel loved, because children who have been sexually abused and have been violated in such a way don't feel like they are worthy of anybody's love. So just reassuring them that you love them and that you're there for them, you are going to help them in their healing so much. Let them know that you're glad that they came out with the abuse. Give them time to talk to you at their own pace. Do not rush them, because, just talking about sexual abuse for a child is hard. There might be things that they don't understand. There might be things that they can't name while they're trying to tell you what is happening to them. Make time to spend with your child. Make sure you're finding time to just spend. And even if you have other children, try and find some one-on-one time with your child, so that the way they know that they can talk about whatever they need to talk about to you in private with nobody else around. Be open and clear with them. Explain to your child in words that they can understand about what is happening in any legal or, court that might be taking place. Because this is all going to start to consume them. They're going to start to just get overwhelmed with everything that is going on. And, you don't want that. You don't want a child to start feeling so overwhelmed that they just emotionally start to shut down. So making sure you're talking to them step by step on what is happening, it's going to help them a lot. And allow your child to talk about things that they're confused about. They might feel confused about certain things, like, why did he do this to me? Or why did she do this to me? Or why did they, touch me in my private areas when they knew that it wasn't okay? Like, there's going to be things, they're going to be so confused, especially if the abuse has been going on for so long, because, they're going to develop that attachment and that bond to their abuser, and it's just going to make it that much harder to talk about. And there's some responses and things that you can try and avoid when talking to a child who's been sexually abused, because they could be really hurtful to them and they can hinder their healing. So don't ask probing questions. Don't sit there and, try to just beat around the bush about things. Just let them come to you. Let them talk about things to you. Don't respond negatively to the abuse with such comments as, how could you be so stupid? Or, why didn't you try and stop it? For one, a child is not stupid, for being sexually abused. They had no control over it. And secondly, a child didn't let abuse happen. The abuser let the abuse happen. The abuser is the only one who should take any responsibility for the abuse. And you need to be putting that into your child's head that they're not at fault. It's the abuser's fault. And when you say something like that, that is so hurtful to your child. Don't try to ignore the incident. Deal with the disclosure. I know that, and I've heard from a lot of survivors that, if a parent was sexually abusing them, that another parent had asked them to or told them, don't ever speak of the abuse again. Remain quiet. Don't let anybody know about this. And that is not okay, because that's, you're contributing to their abuse when you do that, because they're probably still continuing to be sexually abused. So support the child. Report the incident and get them help right away. Get them into some kind of counseling, because they're going to need that. Don't threaten to harm the abuser. Especially if the abuser is a parent or a family member, because the child still loves them. The child still loves them regardless of the abuse. Because, again, most abusers make the children feel like they're doing it for love. So don't ever, tell the child that you're going to go and harm the abuser. Especially things like, well, I'm going to go kill him for doing that, or I'm going to go kill her for doing that to you. Don't do that, because the child loves that person still. And all you're doing is hurting the child. Don't blame the child for what happened. Don't ever, and that is the one thing that I do not ever blame the child for what happened. Don't suggest it would have been better, had they kept quiet about the abuse. Don't make suggestions like that. Don't tell your child that you blame yourself, because then that's going to start making, going to make them start to feel guilty for you feeling that way. Don't tell your child to forget that it ever happened, because a child is never going to forget about sexual abuse, even as they become an adult. Even after the abuser is, went through the criminal justice system and sentenced and sent to prison, you still don't forget about it. You can't just forget about abuse. And you telling a child to just forget about what happened, is making them suppress even more memories. And eventually later in life, it is going to cause them a lot of psychological problems, a lot of mental health problems. Don't tell your child to not talk about it. Talking about sexual abuse is a form of healing. Being able to talk about what has happened to you is such a relief. It's not something that you have to carry on your back or your shoulders anymore. It's something that you can talk about and talk freely about and, not feel bad about it. And don't get upset when your child talks about it. No matter how hard it might be for you to hear what your husband did or your wife did or your dad or your mom did to your child, or a brother or sister, don't tell your child not to talk about it, because talking about it is a way of them healing from it. And being able to talk about it, like I said, it gives you such a great relief. And I don't know, when I talk about it, my abuse, before I used to just shut down and I wouldn't talk about it because I was too afraid to talk about it. And it's not that anybody told me not to talk about it. It's just I wasn't ready. So when a child is ready to talk about it and share their story with people, friends, the world, don't tell them not to talk about it, because this is them freely expressing what they went through. And it's actually a very good form of healing for some. And I know for me, writing, I would write and write and write. I would write about, my abuse. I would write about how I was feeling each day because of it. I would keep journals, and writing was my, way of expressing my abuse. And, now I'm to the point in my healing where it's hard to talk about it, but I can talk about it. And I might cry sometimes, but that's normal. That's normal. Okay, and there is going to be things that you're going to have to expect from a child who has been sexually abused. They're going to have low self-esteem. So many children who have been sexually abused will, describe themselves as being ugly or stupid or worthless or useless, and, they're not worthy of love and things like that. And so, when that happens, try and encourage them, that they're beautiful. What has happened to them doesn't define who they are. Just express to them that they're worth it. Because just because something traumatic has happened to them doesn't make them, unworthy. Many children who have been sexually abused are going to have ongoing learning problems. And learning becomes hard to focus on when you've experienced something so stressful. And with time, that should hopefully pass. But if, they've disclosed abuse and, they're going through the court settings and they're transitioning from one home to another, and they, used to be so into school and making sure their homework was done and getting straight A's, and they start failing behind in those things, that's normal. Hopefully, that'll turn around for them, and, they'll start getting back into wanting to learn. But, just make sure you're encouraging them to do that, do the best that they can do, because, sometimes that is all the best that they can do for, a time. Children who are sexually abused will have difficulty, forming trusting and positive relationships. So, they might start hanging out with the bad crowd in school, or, people who call, kids who are more on the troublemaker, and, your child is always seemed to be, the shining student or something. So children who have been sexually abused will actually start, could start running with the wrong crowd and, getting in trouble and things like that. So, just try to push normal, healthy relationships on them. And, a lot of times victims of sexual abuse or, survivors into adulthood will actually continue to engage in abusive relationships. And it's because it's really all they know, like, controlling and manipulating men and women. And, they'll just continue to let themselves get abused. They'll have a lack of self-respect. Abused children have had their rights, children who have not had their rights respected by an adult, often someone that they should be able to trust. It can destroy their ability to respect themselves, to respect their bodies. Children who are sexually abused may act out. They'll express feelings, sexual impulses that are odd, excessive, aggressive, or explicit. And this may be a normal way that they're trying to express or work through the confusion of what happened to them. And, this might be normal for them for a little while. They might not have boundaries to what's, right and what's wrong between like good touch and bad touch. And so children who are sexually abused will often, need to have limits set on, what they can do and can't do when it, and age appropriate. Make sure it's age appropriate, with like touching, because it is normal for children to try to develop some type of, sexual feelings, at young ages. They say that, children who touch themselves, they're just exploring the parts that they have. But I'm talking like you have other siblings in the home, and a child who's been sexually abused, could sometimes and potentially not know that there's a boundary that they should not touch another child sexually. And that could be a sibling, a friend of the same age, anything like that. So children who are sexually abused will come off more sexual because it's the only way that they know how to express love to somebody. And while, it isn't something normal in like a child who hasn't been sexually abused or came out that they've been sexually abused, like setting really firm limits, and teaching them that those limits need to be set so that they don't harm other people and so that they can grow from what has happened to them and, live a healthy life. And, boundaries are good because children who have been sexually abused are unaware of safe boundaries. So, just setting those boundaries and those limits with children who have been sexually abused, if you notice that they're becoming or acting out sexually, that is a good start. Sexual abuse violates physical and emotional boundaries. And children who, have been abused see the world as unsafe, and they can see adults as manipulative, untrustworthy, or, like I said, they may lack boundaries and be unaware when they are in unsafe situations. Children may respond to sexual abuse in a variety of ways, and some may act out or withdrawn, appear to be timid in social settings. Some children may, react angry, very, very aggressive because they don't know how to deal with what has happened to them. And some children may require special attention and firm limits to be set, while others, act out when situations or locations or everyday items can actually trigger memories of a traumatic event. And triggers can occur unexpectedly. And a child may not know what is happening to them is a trigger because they're unaware of what triggers are. A trigger can be anything that causes the release of emotions or memories of sexual abuse, including certain colors, certain smells, sounds, situations, words, times of day, even seasons. If they happen to see somebody that resembles the person who abused them, those can also, post triggers, and children will start to act out while they're having these triggers because they don't know what is happening. So establishing family guidelines for safety and privacy is very critical as survivors of, sexual childhood abuse start to heal, and especially in young children. Because young children who have been sexually abused are vulnerable to being sexually abused again. Because they have heightened sensitivities to situations that involve physical contact or, evoke sexual activities. And that puts them at greater risk if there's, another man or a woman who try to get close with your child and they know that they've been sexually abused and they think, well, I could probably get away with it too. They're going to potentially try to sexually abuse your child, and they're going to have a bigger potential to being sexually abused again. So again, setting guidelines. And here are some some guidelines you can try to set with children who have been sexually abused. Helping children who have been sexually abused feel safe and secure in your home is number one. Because if they're living with somebody that they don't feel comfortable with, even if it's a mom or a dad getting a new spouse, after everything has happened, if they don't feel comfortable with them, they're not going to feel safe. Make sure that they respect every family member, make sure every family member in the home respects comfort levels with touching, kissing, and hugging, because you could accidentally, just walk up to your kid and, go to hug them or touch them or kiss them, and they're going to start to freak out because they don't want that attention. They don't want that touching. They were just sexually abused. They don't want nobody touching them. So make sure you're setting boundaries and limits on comforts of what the child is okay with and what the child's not okay with. Be cautious when, you're playing with playful touch, like if you're tickling the child or you guys are play wrestling with the child, because this type of touch can be uncomfortable and may trigger the memories of the sexual abuse. And then they're gonna fall into, freaking out and acting out and things like that because they're not understanding why they're feeling that way. And when if your child is triggered by, a memory, you can just be thinking why is my child acting like this? Or, are you mad at me? And you're going to start to, feel that your child hates you, when in reality, they're just trying to figure out a way to express what they're feeling. Again, be mindful that, some children do not have healthy boundaries, so you're going to want to set healthy boundaries. And teach children the importance of privacy. Remind the children, that they have to knock on doors when they're walking into bedrooms because, you don't want your child to walk in on you or, a child to walk in on you while you're in the moment with somebody or even getting dressed, things like that. And the same for the bathroom. Make sure, when they're going to the bathroom, they're closing the door and they're knocking before even entering the bathroom. And, keep adult sexual matters private. Don't, be acting out sexually in front of a child who's been sexually abused because, again, you're probably going to trigger some kind of response from them that they're not going to feel comfortable with. And you want to try to make the child as comfortable as you can in your home. Children who have been sexually abused are going to have ongoing anger that cannot be resolved. You know, they're going to seem angry all the time. And I've seen with parents of children who have been sexually abused, a lot of times children do take anger out on parents who are, you know, the non-abusing parent. And then, you know, that'll start to make you feel discomfort, or, you know, make you feel like you're to blame for everything that happened. But you have to remember that children don't know how to expressively deal with what is happening to them. And sometimes anger is a form of healing. And they could be angry for some time, you know, and then eventually they'll move on from that anger. And especially, you know, just make sure you're there to support them no matter how angry they are or may seem at you. Supporting them and not, you know, I mean, obviously, if your child's like sitting there screaming at you, calling you names and stuff, that's not okay. Like, you're still going to want to punish the child, but not to a point where you're hindering their healing either, you know. So like again, set boundaries, you know, like, you're not going to talk to me that way, things like that. Just, they need love and they need reassurance. And, you know, that's what you have to give children who have been sexually abused. You have to make them know that they are loved and that they're wanted and that they're cared for, and that no matter what happened to them, it's, again, not their fault. Children who have been sexually abused could have problems with soiling and wetting the bed. And, you know, that could be caused from numerous things. It could be nightmares. They could be too afraid to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I know with me, I was always afraid that after my dad had went to prison, I know this is going to sound really weird, but I mean, children think of the craziest things, but after my dad was sent to prison, my biggest thing is I was afraid that he somehow in prison made a voodoo doll. And this voodoo doll was of me, and he was going to use it to hurt me. So I would have to sleep underneath my covers. And if I was going into my room at nighttime, I would literally have to run and jump on my bed, because I thought, you know, he could be living underneath my bed. Like, he was literally the monster underneath my bed. And there was a time where I started having these crazy nightmares that he escaped from prison and snuck into my grandparents' house and was hiding in my closet. So I would literally make my grandmother walk up a flight of stairs to my room and check my closet for me every night to make sure that he wasn't in there. And she did that for me. She did that because she knew that it was something I needed to be done to feel safe to be able to sleep in my home at night. And so, and you know, with the bedwetting and stuff, I didn't experience that as much. You know, I didn't have problems with bedwetting, but it was more, I had problems with making sure that somebody was there to reassure me that he wasn't in my room to attack me. So children, you know, who are sexually abused, and normally it's children who haven't wet the bed, you know, for say like you're 4 years old, you've been potty trained since you're 3, you haven't wet the bed in a year. And then all of a sudden a child starts, you know, soiling and wetting their bed. And not only does that contribute to kids who have came forward with abuse, but I mean, that could be a good indicator that a child is being abused. Guilt. I can't even explain how much guilt has like taken over my mind, my body, my soul. Guilt is a huge, huge thing that children of sexual abuse go through. And it can range from feeling guilty for not telling sooner. It can, range from feeling guilty for telling, feeling guilty for sending your abuser to prison. Hold on, I'm so sorry. My kids are being really loud. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. But, yeah, I felt so guilty. Like, I let guilt eat me up alive for a long time. And it didn't matter, like, how many times people told me that it wasn't my fault. I had, developed, being abused for almost 10 years by my dad, I had developed such a bond to him that it was the hardest thing to overcome in my recovery is that bond to him. And so the guilty feeling, it didn't go away for, 10, 15 years. Like, it took me a long time to overcome the guilt and to realize that I wasn't at fault. So children who are sexually abused are going to have guilt. And you'll hear them say things like, it's all my fault. I'm guilty for this. I'm guilty for that. And as I have said before, like, I was even feeling guilty about things that were happening to my dad while he was in prison. Like, he had wrote me a letter stating, and it was really, really sloppy. And he said, I'm sorry for the letter being so sloppy, but my arm got broke in a fight. And I cried for a week because I felt guilty for that. Even though some of me knew that I shouldn't feel guilty. That bond that a child has with their abuser is so strong that it takes everything from them. It took everything from me, that bond that I had with him. And eventually I just, I started group therapy with other girls who had been sexually abused, and that worked wonders with my healing. Like, being able to sit and listen to other girls who had been through something similar to what I had, like, it opened my eyes. So, like, I really recommend for children who have been sexually abused to do some kind of counseling. Try one-on-one counseling. Try, counseling with you and your child. And try group therapy, because group therapy really works. I'm telling you, like, I hated one-on-one counseling, but, put me in a room with girls who have been through the same thing that I have, like, I was all game for it. Like, these people know what I'm going through. They know how I'm feeling right now. And I think survivors bonding with other survivors really, really helps in someone's healing. So, if you haven't tried group therapy and you are a victim of sexual abuse, or, and you're surviving now, but you're still having a hard time with healing, try it. They don't just have it for children. Like, they have support groups for, older survivors too. And just get with people, who have been through what you have been through, that understand you, that understand just everything about what has happened to you. And I tell you what, it worked wonders for me, and I loved it. And we didn't just do group therapy like in a home setting or anything. Like, we would go places, like we would go to the movies and out to dinner and things like that. And it was a lot of fun, and it helped a lot in my healing. I don't know why my light's doing that. A lot of kids who have been sexually abused will have, like, self-destructive behavior. They will try to harm themselves. They will cut. They will turn to drugs and alcohol as some type of relief from the pain that they're feeling, or, even from the guilt that they're feeling. And I know when I was younger, I was about, 12, 13, it's probably 12, right after I first, no, I would have been 13, because my dad was sentenced on March 31st of 2003, and I turned 13 on March 26th of 2003. I actually tried cutting for a little while, because, I was angry at the world, and I was angry at myself for, telling on my dad, and then my dad being sentenced to prison, that I had heard about people cutting themselves, so I was like, well, it's got to work if other people are doing it. So I tried it, and I tried it for a few months. And every time I would get so angry. I would be so angry. And I'd be so angry at my grandparents for no reason, you know? And I would just go up into my room and I would cut, and it would literally feel like, you know, all that emotion that I was feeling was just released. But then after a while, you know, it got to the point where I was trying to hide it. And I would always wear long sleeves, and people would ask me, how are you wearing a long sleeve on an 80-degree day, you know? And I couldn't say, oh, it's because I'm cutting myself, because then, you know, they'd throw me in like a psychiatric ward or something. This is what I was afraid of. And eventually I stopped. I didn't need to do that anymore. But then came the eating disorder. I was anorexic for about a year. And I was so skinny that I was to the point of probably dying. I was so skinny that when and for a year, you know, I just kept thinking there was something wrong with me. The abuse was all my fault. I need to change the way that I look. And not eating was a form of control for me. It was a form of me being able to control myself and what happens to me and what goes inside me. So, you know, for a whole year, I would, you know, be out playing with my friends and stuff, and I would come home and my grandparents would make dinner, and I'd be like, oh, I ate over at so-and-so's house already, I'm not hungry. And I was able to get away with it for a while until, you know, my grandma started noticing after probably about 6 or 7 months, there's something wrong with you. Like, why are you so skinny? None of my clothes were fitting. I mean, I was 13 years old, and I only weighed, you know, like 85 pounds. 80 pounds. I was so skinny. And about a year, I was about a year into being anorexic. And I went in the bathroom one day, and I lifted up my shirt, and I started bawling. And my grandma comes and says, what's wrong? What's wrong? I'm like, I have a problem, because you could see every bone in my chest. You could count every bone in my rib. You could see every bone in my backbone. My ribs in the back, you could count each one of them. My hip bone stuck out so far. My collarbone was just in that moment, like, I looked at myself and like, I'm gonna die, you know? Am I gonna let what he did to me kill me? And that's when I started my group therapy. And I was able to overcome anorexia. And, you know, I eat healthy now. I mean, I wouldn't say like healthy, like I'm not a food critic. Like, I don't count my calories. You know, I eat McDonald's. I eat Subway. I eat salads, hamburgers, you know. I eat everything. Not everything. There's some things that I don't eat because I don't like. But, you know, and group therapy helped me with that. Like, it helped me, you know, come to realize that I was still abusing myself by trying to control what I was eating and what was, you know, going inside of my body as a form of trying to hinder the way that he took advantage of my body, the way that my father took advantage of my body. And in doing so, I was killing myself. And a lot of children who have been sexually abused, they get very depressed. And I was very depressed, but I was never put on, oh no, I was put on medication, I think one time for it. And I didn't end up needing to take it, I don't think. Or maybe I didn't want to take it. I don't know. I was depressed a lot. And you'll have that with children who are sexually abused. You know, they'll be very depressed and suffer from a lot of different mental health issues. And so it's always good to get them in to see somebody and get them into like a regular doctor, you know, to go over these concerns that you have. And, you know, it's really hard being a child and trying to overcome something so traumatic, because you feel like your whole world has just been completely turned upside down, and you don't know what to think anymore. You don't know who to believe anymore. You don't know who to trust anymore. You don't even believe in yourself. You don't even trust yourself. And I know, I turned to alcohol for a little while. Well, actually, like 2 years. From the time I was 13 till I was 15, I was hanging out with a rough crowd. And a lot of them were older than me. Males, older males. And, they would buy me booze and they would get me cigarettes. And, it wasn't until, my grandma realized, like, I can't handle this. I'm getting old. I can't handle this. I can't handle losing you. And she did have me go live with, 2 other family members who could be more, I wouldn't say more supportive, because my grandma was always very supportive, but more grounding, more able to set rules and those limits and those guidelines to what was okay and wasn't okay to be doing. Because I was a grandma and grandpa's girl. Like, I'm their only granddaughter. So I was such a, they were pushovers. They would ground me. And then, by the next day, I was ungrounded. So they knew that they couldn't support me in the way that I needed to be supported at this time in my life. And I don't feel like they abandoned me in any way, because if it wasn't for them coming to the fact that they couldn't, support me in the way that I needed to be supported to grow up and, live a fulfilling life. And so, I went and lived with my aunt and uncle, and, they were definitely more stricter. Like, it was a big change trying to adjust moving from my grandparents to moving with them, but oh my God, I love them so much. And, and I tell them all the time, like, I cannot thank you for everything that you did for me, because if it wasn't for you guys, like, who knows where I would be right now. If I wouldn't have had that structure and that grounding in my life, I would probably be all over the place right now. But I mean, I'm sitting here today. I'm married. I've been married for 10 years. I have 3 children. I go to school full time for, in criminal justice. And I feel like if I wasn't, sent to where I was with my aunt and uncle, like, I would have just continued to spiral down this bad path. And I mean, I couldn't be more blessed. So supporting children who have been sexually abused through everything, supporting them, letting them know that you're there for them, that you love them, that you care about them, that if you have to make changes within their life to help them, to better serve them, to make sure that they are going to become the adults that that they can be, don't hesitate to do that. And yeah, they might be mad at you for a little while, but they're not going to stay mad at you forever. Children who are sexually abused, they're going to come with problems. They're going to have problems. And it's just with the right support system and, educating them on things, like, they're going to turn out to be just as wonderful as a child who hasn't been sexually assaulted. It's just, don't give up on them. Don't ever give up on them. Because while it might be a rough road for you to raising somebody who's been sexually abused, it's a rough road for them growing up from being sexually abused. It's a rough road, of healing for them. Because that's what it is all about. And you can't set a time limit on somebody's healing. They're going to heal for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, it could take the whole rest of their life to heal. So don't ever push healing on them. Let them do it in their own time. Let them express the way that they are feeling, but in a way that it's not going to harm them. It's not going to harm you. And just be there for them. Just be there for them. Let them know that you believe them. Let them know that you are somebody you can trust. Let them know that they are safe when they are with you and that nothing bad is going to happen to them, as long as you can, control that. I mean, because obviously if a child's just is gonna go out and go to a party, I mean, you can't really control what's gonna happen at that party. But educating yourself and educating them on awareness, and a good, a good video to look up is like situational awareness. If you go on and you Google situational awareness, it'll bring up videos on ways that you can teach yourself and your children to be situationally aware of their surroundings and the people around them. And we had learned about that in class, last semester. Might have been, no, yeah, last semester. And I tell you what, I look at these videos and I watch these videos on situational awareness, and I'm like, man, I do these things, like making sure you lock your car when you're pumping gas and you go in to pay in case somebody jumps in your car and is hiding out in the back seat. Like, my one thing that I do every time I get in my car, it doesn't matter if my car has been in my driveway, I check the back seat. Like, I don't know. It's just, I check the back seat to make sure nobody's in my car. Just things like that. So definitely looking into things on situational awareness are going to help you and your children be more aware of what is happening around you. So thank you for tuning in to my other videos and showing so much support and love. I love what I do. I love being able to sit here and talk about things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I know that there's a lot of people that don't want to hear about it. But you know what? You're just going to have to deal with it, because I ain't going nowhere. And again, like this video, comment if you want to leave a comment. If there's something you want me to talk about, put it in the comments and I will scrounge stuff together and I will talk about it for you. Or you can, personally message me on my Facebook page, Sexual Childhood Abuse Survivors page on Facebook. And there is a link for that on my YouTube channel. And you can even message me on there, privately, and if you want me to make a video discussing something, and I will do that. If you are being sexually abused and you need help, message me. I will get you the help, and I will get you to the people who can help you, because I'm not saying that I can't help you, but the more people that are there to support you and help you, and some of these organizations, especially the It Was Me campaign, like, they are amazing. They're amazing people. And, just hooking you up with people who are going to help you and support you along with me. Like, because the more support you have and the more people that you have in your corner, the more confident, you're going to feel about coming forward with your story and knowing that you're not alone in this journey, because no child who is sexually abused, girl or boy, is alone in this journey. We are in this journey together. So again, you can follow me on Twitter at Rabun_Nicole. That's RABUN_NICHOLE. You can follow me on my Twitter, and my Twitter account is also, specifically for raising awareness on sexual childhood abuse. So yeah, thank you. Subscribe to my channel, and then when you subscribe to my channel, you will get updates on every video that I post. So give it a thumbs up. So have a great night, everybody. Bye.